Hello and welcome back to the Premier Injuries podcast. Today, we're talking all about captaincies, getting it right from game week 8 because we are returning from the international break. We've kept you up to date with lots of injury updates through this week and last week as well. So if you've missed any of them, do make sure to check them out. But also Ben will be doing his usual analysis, Ben in 10 as we like to call it, later this week as well, just so that you can keep up to date. And do remember, don't use those transfers just yet, because Ben is trying to distract me because I said something much funnier earlier on in the podcast and we've had to retake it about 5 times. I said, don't use your fingers yet with the transfers, just because there's so much information that we're still getting through. But let's move into the analysis. Remember to like, share and subscribe. But I'm going to start off with, I think, the obvious choice this week. I don't see how there can be too much argument against this. Mo Salah, he's playing Watford. Yes, it's the Gandhi hour, but I think Mo Salah is one of the only players that kind of goes against the Gandhi curse, and he can actually deliver in that early kickoff. Liverpool are just absolutely fantastic at the moment. Their individual attacking data, the best in the league. And the thing is as well, I chatted to James York from StatsBomb about this. They're matching their XG at the moment. They could go even further because they're just that damn good. But in terms of it then, Salah leading the line of the best attack at the moment. He's up there, highest XG, most shots in the box, most big chances created. Salah just looking so good with a 58% chance of scoring against Watford as well, the highest of any player this week. He's looking great as a captaincy choice. But Ben, are you so warm on him as me?
I love Salah. He's never far away from the captaincy picks, whichever game we can look at. And on paper, yes, this looks like a banker. This looks like a ready-made game for the likes of Salah. However, I would like to urge caution ahead of the early kickoff at Vicarage Road. Why, may you ask? Well, listen, Jason, because I'm going to tell you. Number one, obviously, we've seen the departure of Cisco Muniz, and he's out the door. So we see Claudio Ranieri arrive at Watford. He has a great record against Liverpool. I think they've had 5 encounters during his managerial career. He's actually won 4 of those. So he has an 80% win ratio against Liverpool. Vicarage Road will be buzzing. So you're going to get that new manager bounce. We're also it looks highly likely that Liverpool will certainly be without Fabinho. Quite possibly Alisson could be absent from that starting 11 as well. Of course, both players are involved for Brazil against Uruguay in the early hours of Friday morning, the 15th. So it's less than 33 hours between their game finishing and the kickoff at Vicarage Road. And it's just got one of those banana skins on an icy path feel about it. When everything seems to be falling into place for the away team, it's one of those games where I can see, the home side pulling off a performance. We wrote Watford off last time. I think Liverpool arrived in 2020, was it maybe, on a 44-game unbeaten run, and Watford beat them 3-0 comfortably on that night. Ismail Sarr, standout performer, man of the match. They now arrive at Vicarage Road. I think it's on a 17-match unbeaten run. Can Watford end that run again? It's going to be difficult, but, like I say, I do like Salah. Watford missing centre-backs, Kabasele and also Francesco Serralta as well. So they're missing 2 at the back. Everything looks good, but just be a little bit wary with regards to going all in on Salah.
So, point up or down with Salah, thumbs up, thumbs down. How are you feeling with that one?
I'm going with it. The thumb isn't going all the way up. It's just, I'm just going I'm just sticking the tip is just rising, and I'm going to keep it there.
On that medium level. Okay, Ben. So we talked about Salah. Who do you want to bring up as maybe a differing captain that the community might put their hope in? Because like you said there, you've got a few doubts over probably the favourite this week in Salah.
And yeah, look, let's throw Romelu Lukaku into the mix. He's had a tough few game weeks. I think it's 3 consecutive games now he's failed to score. And we've also seen him released from the Belgium squad earlier in the week. Roberto Martinez flagging the player as suffering from muscle fatigue. That's not totally unexpected given his arrival at Stamford Bridge. Played a lot of minutes, a lot of load. So for me, that was an ideal opportunity just for him to rest, recharge. He's going to be champing at the bit to get back on. It's a London derby. It's against a Brentford team, they've took the Premier League by storm this season, surpassing, anybody's expectations in reality. And defensively, they have been great. But what I would say is one of the games where they come up against Big Six opposition in Liverpool, they were found wanting a little bit. Liverpool were clever enough and had the players capable of exploiting those spaces in between the lines, creating that space. Brentford, don't get me wrong, made a very good account of themselves and could have even won on that day. But, I don't think Chelsea will be as liberal in giving up chances as Liverpool were on that night. We also seen a return to form of Timo Werner during the international break and an upturn from him, with that sort of two-prong attack. Those players, I can see Lukaku, getting back in his groove and delivering a big performance. And I do expect Chelsea to go there and take all 3 points.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Chelsea. I think there will be goals from both sides. So I'm a little bit cautious on playing my Chelsea defender in that one because I just think that Brentford are that good that they'll bring the game to Chelsea and give them a bit of a difficult time. But it's hard to overlook Lukaku because he's been in great form in the early part of the season. He kind of exploded onto the scene with Chelsea. Yes, he's had 3 games in a row in a blank, but you expect him not to continue that. And Brentford are the type of team, like I said, they'll bring the game to Chelsea and that will allow them a few opportunities. I want to turn it to another London-based player, though. He plays for the Lily Whites. It's Heung-min Son. I've chosen him over Harry Kane because he's, in great form. And I don't think fixtures really affect him too much anyway. He's just that good as a player. The Tottenham team have been dreadful over the last few weeks, but this is the type of game that you kind of want to pounce upon. The Norwich/Newcastle games this season seem to be the ones that are almost the whipping boys for this season. Newcastle, rock bottom XG conceded. They're looking really poor as Steve Bruce just doesn't really have a defensive idea, unfortunately. But Son himself, 38% chance of scoring. Some of his data isn't fantastic. Again, like I said, Tottenham's data isn't great, but he's always overperforming his XG. He can comfortably do that, so I trust in him. And against this type of Newcastle defence, he's the type of player that will punish it. He is in good form. I expect him much more than Kane. We've seen Kane struggle in the international break as well. There's just something lacking there, whereas Son has been pushing on and been brilliant. He's the star of Tottenham at the moment. But do you have any kind of worries about him? Because he's been away on international duty, hasn't he?
Yeah, in terms of actual fitness and fatigue and everything like that, that isn't an issue. Plenty of recovery time in between, games for South Korea and then returning to St. James's Park. Obviously, that game isn't until the late kickoff on Sunday. That's a 4:30 kickoff. At British summertime. So there's no issues there. However, we've talked about how some off the field influencing factors can affect teams. Case in point. Had you asked me this 7, 8, 9 days ago, I'm all in. I'm all over Son. It's a standout pick, and quite rightly so. However, you fast forward to where we are now, and we now see the departure of Mike Ashley. You cannot underestimate the weight that has been lifted from the support here on Tyneside. It's going to be a sellout crowd at St. James's Park. They could have filled that ground probably 3 times over. There was 150, 160,000 fans wanting to get in that ground for that game. The place is going to be absolutely jumping. I mean, honestly, you've seen them celebrating outside of St. James's Park all week on the drink, cans, expected cans.
XD.
It's, whether Steve Bruce is in charge or not, it remains to be seen. I don't really think it makes that much difference, to be honest. We've seen the likes of Callum Wilson, Jamal Lascelles, John Joe Shelby all involved in training this week. So that could be a boost from that to only further, that shot in the arm for Newcastle. If Steve Bruce is in charge, he could see this as his last game and just think, one last hurrah, put them all in there. If they break down, if they get injured, who cares? I'm gone. If Graham Jones takes over, well, he's highly respected. And these players are now playing for contracts, they're playing for the future, and they want to impress potential suitors, managers, owners. So I think the goalposts have changed so much, and almost for me, you can disregard any data you have on Newcastle at the moment, purely on adrenaline and the atmosphere that will be generated on Sunday. That will transcend anything that Tottenham bring to the party. And by the way, I really do like Son, but overall, Tottenham have been pretty dire this season.
Yeah, it's, everything that you said is true. And maybe a bit of data in terms of it. We talked about the new manager bounce effect with Watford, but the new owner bounce effect could be in effect here with Newcastle. Like you said, you can't underestimate how powerful this change is at the club, and it could be new manager bounce effect times two, because that's how dreadful it has been on Tyneside for such a long while. But yeah, let's continue the discussions then. We've got a couple more players to get through. Who do you want to bring to the fore?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to overlook Manchester City this weekend. A win over Burnley at the Etihad would make it 5 consecutive, potentially 5-0 victories in a row. So that's massive. The difficulty, as always, is trying to nail down which starting 11 Pep will go for. In the past, you were always drawn towards that central striker, whether it be Sergio Aguero or maybe Gabriel Jesus. At a point, that's your talisman. That was the player who was earmarked for the highest point. We don't have that now at Manchester City, and that's a worry. And I suppose that's maybe the exciting thing from a fantasy perspective, because different opinions, different strategies, different managers will go for different City players. For me, I like to go with maybe, although I do like the differential, I do like to maybe go for that more sort of safer option in terms of who do I think is probably nailed down, or is as close to nailed down as we possibly can. And that's Jack Grealish, the big money signing, done very, very well since his arrival at the club. I think he's got the highest XG and XGI of any player. So he has been putting in the performances, although not necessarily getting the end product that maybe that player deserves. I think it's just 1 goal and 1 assist this season. A lot of people within the community talking about Phil Foden, and yes, he's had put in some sparkling displays, but those displays mean nothing when it comes to Pep if he wants to rotate, and therefore, it is a slightly more risky punt. Kevin De Bruyne, historically, a great player, outstanding asset, but we're not seeing the Kevin De Bruyne that we all know and love, certainly not reaching those levels of his previous performance. Whether he's still carrying that ankle problem from the Euros, it could be that case. Elsewhere, where'd you look? Mahrez may come into people's thinking, but we just don't know if he's going to be in that starting 11. So for me, Jack Grealish looks the best of the bunch. City, 88% chance of winning with a 51% chance of scoring 3 goals or more.
I mean, it's outstanding data for them, and you want to be in on that. And I totally agree with you. I think one of the things that has shocked me is almost a lot of people being Debbie Downers on Grealish as well. Foden, I get, and I think maybe people are trying to be a bit too ahead of the curve with Foden. He's not going to get week in, week out, unless Pep suddenly turns about face. Grealish seems to be the most nailed. It seems like Diaz, Grealish and Edison are almost like the core members of that team. Maybe Cancelo over the next few weeks might prove that he is nailed as well, but I just don't trust Pep there. But in terms of it, Manchester City are one of the best, if not the best team in the league at the moment. You've got a 7.9 million midfielder there who's going to be starting for them week in, week out. I don't understand what there isn't to love about that. It's a great way into a fantastic midfield. And if this was, I don't know, another player for exactly the same price, do you think people would be a bit more hyped? I think so.
If this was Jack Grealish at Aston Villa, you would snap the hand off. He would be in your team. So, it doesn't make any sense for you not to consider Grealish in that City side with so much, attacking potential within that team.
Let's move it to the last one, though. And you've told me who this last one is going to be. I love this so much so that I'm considering getting them into my fantasy Premier League team. Yeah, this is pure differential Dinnery stuff, but why have you chosen them?
Yeah, so it is, drum roll, this is Jamie Vardy. Hey. And, on initial thoughts, you may look at that and see, a hugely difficult game, two poor sides, not much to like, really. United have suffered, Leicester have been bad for most of the year, in all honesty. United suffered a little bit of a downturn in recent weeks. But we talk about players who can transcend fixtures, who can transcend teams' poor form. And Jamie Vardy is one of those players for Leicester City. And the reason, he's joint top scorer in the league with Mo Salah this season with 6 goals already. His form has been great. He's looking as sharp as attack. But the kicker here for me is we know that Raphael Varane has been ruled out for at least a few weeks. We've posted an update already on YouTube, and we're also expecting Harry Maguire to miss out. He's struggling to overcome the calf injury that kept him out before the international break and the games for the Three Lions, during this past fortnight. So that means we're probably looking at Victor Lindelof, and then possibly Eric Bailly is coming in for his first minutes in the Premier League this season. It's going to be a baptism of fire. We know that Jamie Vardy loves a goal against the Big Six. He's not daunted by the opposition. And I just feel that, maybe the stars are aligning here for a great standout differential pick in Jamie Vardy.
Yeah. And so much so that I might actually get Vardy instead of Lukaku for this game week. Have the 1 week punt on him. I don't like doing that too much, but I'm planning to play my wild card either this week or next week. So, if the transfer doesn't go off with Vardy, then I can wild card next week, get him out. But in terms of it, Man United's defensive data has been bad for a while. I think a lot of people are shocked at how bad they've been. But in the last 9 games of last season, they managed 0.11 clean sheets per 90. They had goals conceded of 1.33 per 90 and XG conceded of about 1 per 90. So they were looking to concede at least 1 goal every game anyway towards the end of last season. And it's continued into this season, basically a replica of a lot of that data. The only thing that's slightly improved is the goals conceded per 90, but they're looking about like they're conceding 1 goal per 90, 0.14 clean sheets per 90. Dreadful stuff. And the way that Vardy is playing at the moment, I think that, we talked about it pre-season. He's had this time off. He's had that ability to rest up. He's come back almost as good as he's ever been, and rest has recuperated Vardy and made him brilliant once again. So I like it as a shout. I don't know if I've got the kahunas to captain him though, but it's a real serious consideration, and I love it. It's another one of those differential Dinnery trademark shout outs. But for now, I'm going to wish everybody the best of luck with their teams. Please do pay attention to us through the week. Make sure that you got your transfers under lock and key for the last moments, because Ben will be helping you as he's showing there, making sure that your transfers are well and truly well thought out, because there could be injuries, there could be any sorts of complications due to the international break. But for now, remember to subscribe to the channel, Comment below if you agree, disagree, whatever with what we've said in these videos, and make sure to like as well. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye and the best of luck through the rest of your week.